thing we want to do now is to see how we can create the tables for our PSYCOPG2, sorry, for our Postgres database. But we'll be using Python and PSYCOPG2 for that. So to do that, what we have here is the database connection. So first of all, we need to ensure that we can connect to the database, and that's what I have here. PSYCOPG2. So I had to import PSYCOPG2. After installing it, you have to do the pip install PSYCOPG2 to install it in the system, or if you are using a virtual machine, then you now do the connect. So you have to connect to the Postgres database. So these are my details. I was able to get local name, the name of the database, the port number, my user, and password. And if you want that, you can open your PG admin viewer to view your database. And if we come here, you'll see the server properties, and you can go to connection and you see localhost, the port, and the username. But if you go up to the database itself, let me open the so that's my data, and come down here, you can now see the user owner, which is this my name, and the database itself. So let's go back to this thing. So now what we did is we did set the values for the connection, and we stored it in a variable con, and that's why we're here returning con, so that when we call this class and this method in the class connect, it will return the connection. That's the idea. So we created another file, reset.py, and this is where we want to now create the script, Python script, that would execute the SQL query that we have here. So it means we need to write our SQL query, and what we did here is said drop the table if it exists. That's for the songs, and the second table is users. But see what we did here, we created the first table, users, and we have ID. Serial means that it's going to be auto incremented for the ID, and we set it as the primary key. So the idea is that when we are feeding values into the table, we do not need to include the ID to automatically generate that for us. Then we have the username, which is unique, not null, and the varchar, the first name, last name, created at. So these are the users of the song. So what it means is that these users are meant to be like the creators of the songs, so to say, or the owners of the songs. So updated at now, when this user was created and updated. Then we have that of the songs. The table that will be created is the ID serial, the same thing. The only difference here is that we are putting a constraint, the name of the constraint user ID. Is going to be foreign key, and is stating that the user ID in this table, which is this, is a foreign key which references the ID of the user's table here. So this ID is going to be the user ID. Then we put on delete cascade, which means that if this user is deleted, then all his records in the songs table will also be deleted. So what this means, references user ID, is that it means that any record you create here for the songs table, it will be owned by this user with the ID, the user ID. So the user's ID is going to be here for the songs that will be created. So that's just what it means. So in this case, we called the connection. Remember, this class is what we have in the database here. This is the class, and the method is connect, and we're expecting the connection to be returned. So here we've called the class by models.db. Models is the package, and db here is the model that we have here, and we are saying call that and import the class, which is what we have here. So we're importing it, and now we will now use that class and connect to the method. So that's why we have connect. And once we do that, it's going to return the connection. So that connection, we're going to store it in this variable called con. So that's the first thing we need to do, create your connection. The second is that we need to create the cursor. So the cursor will be created from the connection. That's why we have con.cursor. Now, why we have this is, later I'll explain, but basically you want to reference the names of the columns instead of their index position. So when you are reading that, when you are reading the values from database, so that's later when we're reading, we would consider that. So it's going to create the cursor here from the connection. So that's the second important thing we need to do. The third thing is to run the execution. So to execute the cursor. So in this case, we first need to read the scripts, or let me say the query from the schema.sql file. And that's why we have a context manager connection here. So we say open that file, read from it as f, or you can call it file. Then you say file.read, which is actually calling that everything we have here now. It's going to read everything from line 1 down to line 21. And once it's done that, it's going to execute. So call.execute. So that's the third important thing. You have to execute that. And the fourth one is that you have to commit the connection. So commit. So once we've done that, we're expecting that it would then create these tables for us and drop if they exist, then create them. Then it's going to print out database tables created successfully and return true. And if we have exception errors, it will take that. And finally, it will close the connection and the cursor. So let's run this and see. So we'll just click on this, but we'll go to main, sorry. And we would need to call that, what do you call it now? We're going to call the reset.schema, because you can see here models.reset, which is the models package. Reset is the model. And now we are calling the reset.schema, which is the class. So this class, and we are saying run this. This is the method run. So it's going to run this, and it's going to run everything which you just explained and execute that. So let's do that. So we'll run that. And now it says database create tables created successfully. So it was able to do that. So if I minimize this and open my pgadmin, and let's refresh that database. So I'm going to refresh, and now I'm going to open my data which we're connecting to, and schemas, and I come down to tables, and now we have songs created and users. So let me view and edit all rows, and now we can see that it has created the table for us, empty table, but it has created with all the columns we specified in that SQL script, and that of users too. Let's do that. And you can see it also created all the columns for us. So it means our script ran and it was able to do exactly what we expected of it to do. So in the next video, we're now going to see how to insert values into the tables that we've just created.